I just could press a button. Hello, everyone. Thank God it's Friday, right? I hope you
Right.
enjoyed your holiday break this past weekend. I know I sure did. And here, as always, with my colleague in crime, the one and only Mr. Martin Valko. Mr. Martin
Hello, Nick.
Valko, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay. I'm glad it's Friday too, and it's gonna be weekend again. So I'm
yeah,
happy
yeah,
about that.
yeah. Ready to get the weekend started as well. Um, This week, there were some important announcements that, of course, we're going to be talking about, from COVID to refugees and politics. We're here to deliver for you guys, our friends. But first, this week we had an appreciation day. Was it on Tuesday or Monday? It was for our
Monday.
staff, which
Monday. Yep.
Monday, which also happened to align with your birthday. So happy belated birthday! And
Thank you very much.
you all did a pinata, which is that was pretty cool. Did y'all? Yeah, there's a picture of Mark. Was there any
That's one.
candy inside?
That's one of the announcements that's coming. It's at the end of the show. We're gonna announce the winner of our
Yeah.
contest, who had to guess how many times it took me to break the pinata. So there have been several attempts, but somebody did guess it. And once we wrap up the end of the week, we are going to announce the winner of our goodie bags
So what they're
or
gonna
goodie
win?
bag.
They're gonna win some merch, from
They're
what I
gonna
understand.
they're gonna win some merchandise. They are probably gonna get some candy from the pinata as well. So
Yeah. So stay tuned. Stay till the end, and we'll announce it. Mark will announce the big winner of the pinata contest, if you will. Also, before we delve in, I'd just like to say thank you to all our listeners. We're closing in on our target of 1,000 subscribers, and of course, we couldn't be more grateful. Again, if you like our information, and not only the show, I mean, we have other shows too, and we have other content. We have the employment based show. So if you enjoy the sweet voice of Ben Hamilton and Andrew, check them out. Or maybe you prefer hearing Spanish jokes. I don't know. Then tune in every Wednesday to hear Alfonso. So we have good content. We have good information. And I am sounding like a PBS infomercial, Martin. I don't know. I should stop here. But and of course, if you have a burning question about your case or about immigration in general, feel free to send us a message or write it down on the screen. We'll be happy to look at it and reply to you. So with that, we have some good news coming out of this week, don't we, Martin?
we do, we do. Yep.
USCI, yeah, the U.S. announced a new parole program, which we were waiting for Ukrainians, and it's called United for Ukraine.
Uniting, yeah, uniting for Ukraine. Yep.
Uniting for Ukraine, I should say, right?
Yep.
And can you tell us a little bit about it?
Well, we've on this show we mentioned it several times. We're waiting for the TPS that happened last week. They've extended the physical presence for the Ukrainian nationals from, I believe, initially it was March 1st. Now it's what was it, April 11th? So they pushed the physical presence for those that weren't here yet, and so that was certainly a welcome news. Um, and what people have been doing, Ukrainians were coming to Mexico, and they were coming through the southern border, and they were getting basically paroled in. There were some exception being made, so they didn't have to wait in Mexico like the rest of the people that are trying to come in and claim asylum. And so it's important for everybody to know that that is going to end on Monday. And so the government had announced, the administration, that they should no longer come through the southern border as they have been. And they have announced a new parole program, the humanitarian parole, as you mentioned, uniting for Ukraine. And they're expecting approximately 100,000 parolees to be brought into the U.S. And they will basically be coming over from abroad, most likely through other ports of entry. So whether it's going to be through a plane or any port of entry from Canada or even from Mexico, but it's going to have to be done in an orderly fashion and based on an approved parole. And so Basically, one of the requirements of the eligibility is that they have resided in Ukraine as of February 11th of this year. There is going to be a bunch of things that will be required. One of them, that there's going to have to be a sponsor. So it's not going to be, hey, I want to come in. It just basically shifted it to having a U.S. resident, which basically includes citizens, lawful permanent residents, and or organizations which were not thought to be nonprofits, perhaps even private businesses that basically will complete some type of financial documentation that they will be able to support the people applying for parole. And then they will go through background checks, pass biometrics, there's all of these things. Even the sponsors will be required to go through the background checks. So they'll be able to sponsor them. The parole will be valid for 2 years. And so once the person is paroled in, they'll be able to apply for a work permit and be here for up to 2 years. And with parole, you may be able to extend it unless the parole is canceled or discontinued. So that's basically what is going to happen next week. So people that have been hearing and being told that you can come through the southern border, just show up at the port of entry and claim asylum, that is going to stop as of Monday. And people are asking, well, what are the details? What are the instructions? Well, we don't have them yet, but hopefully they will be published next Monday.
Yeah, the details are still being worked on. Returning a little bit to this idea of sponsorship, the sponsor. I mean, that's always been there in the books, as they say. It's always been available. But now with the situation in Afghanistan and now with Ukraine, we're hearing more and more about this concept of sponsorship, and we're getting emails and messages from interested people, people who are here in the United States, they're citizens or residents who say, maybe I want to become a sponsor, and they really want to help out. And I think that's an interesting development, to getting more people involved that way and learning what a sponsor is. Now, there's more details that will be fleshed out, but if you want more information on what it is to be a sponsor in general, look in our description. There's a nonprofit organization that has worked on these types of sponsorship situations, and they've organized people before. They mobilized individuals in becoming sponsors, not only individuals, but also organizations, and explain what the obligations are, what are their duties. And, they're responsible for just about anything, really. You can help out, by finding housing and or maybe arranging the person who comes in to learn English, or you're just basically helping them out to get situated here, whether it be housing or supplies or groceries or what have. And I think just that is a very good thing. It's a very American thing, I think. And so I'm really happy for that development. And again, it's in our description. Another good development, and again, good development, but out of a bad situation, right?
Yeah.
The world is messed up, and there's country conditions are just horrible everywhere you can just imagine here. And so, but USCIS, or I should say DHS, finally designated Cameroon as a TPS country, and many say it was long overdue, because there has been considerable pressures for the government to act on this and give and designate Cameroon as a TPS country, due to the civil war, and now with the violence by the government forces there, and then the rise in attacks by Boko Haram, and it was overdue. And I think I'm very happy to see this development. And so with TPS, and Mara and I talk about TPS frequently, and it seems more frequent than usual. But for those who have been residing in the United States on the date that the TPS designation was announced here for Cameroon, it's April 14th this year. If you were residing physically in the United States, you may be eligible to apply, and it will give you work authorization and protection for 18 months.
I just want to chime in regarding the work authorizations because a lot of questions are being asked about, well, how quickly, how soon will I be able to start working, and that's basically the issue here. The USCIS, due to previous administrations' anti-immigrant or just making it very difficult for immigrants to process their applications and benefits, they've contributed to this severe backlog. We're talking about hundreds and thousands of applications for employment that are pending, and when you add in the work authorization for Afghanistan for the parolees that were paroled into the U.S. Some of them are still pending, for the parole application and the work authorization. So it basically, with Ukraine, with Cameroon, with all of these, it is just backlog. We're talking about several months, maybe up to 10 months of processing time. So those delays are pretty significant. So that's just one caveat, that it's not immediate when somebody would come in on a parole, and that's perhaps something that they should implement, the way they have changed the policy that we discussed about a few weeks ago for the spouses, for the dependents and spouses of investors and intracompany transferees, which basically their work authorization is incident to status. And so that designation, that admission in that particular class, is in and of itself authorization to work, right? And so you would think that with these paroles, because if somebody's paroled in, they'll show up, but they can't. They can be here lawfully. It's not an admission; it's a parole, so they can be here, but they cannot work yet. And so they're going to have to apply, and it's taking a long time. So I wish that there would be some type of a designation that once you are paroled into the U.S., that would give you that kind of designation, and with that you can go and apply for work.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's good. That's a good point there. In other news, but not immigration related, but big news, right? The government announced that they were lifting, or I should say, not the government. There was a mask mandate, as we all know, right? And that was lifted by a court order, and of course, the Biden administration is fighting it. But I only bring it up because this has to do, and there could be some confusion, but there's a mask mandate. There's these COVID restrictions, and we as Americans, we are subject to them. But immigrants, and when we're talking about immigration, they're under some tighter restrictions, right? They can do that under the law, and we've seen that with the border restrictions and the travel restrictions. And there was an announcement this week that the temporary travel restrictions regarding COVID at the border, both Mexico and in Canada, have continued on. So those individuals, so even though the mask mandate has been lifted, it doesn't necessarily impact those coming in the United States. So if you are coming in to the United States through the border, the southern or northern, you still, if you're not a U.S. citizen, if you're not a lawful permanent resident, you still have to be vaccinated against COVID. I think it's important to clarify, because a lot of people, are celebrating about the mask mandate being lifted. But in terms of immigration, it's different.
Right. And so next thing we had was the lifting of the Title 42, basically prohibition from entering and seeking asylum in the U.S. So anybody who was attempting to apply for asylum and get stopped at the border got pushed back, and people would have to wait in Mexico on the southern border. And that was supposed to be lifted on May 23rd. We again brought it up a couple of shows ago that there was some pushback, and not only within the Republican Party and Republicans in Congress, but also on behalf of the president's party, the Democrats. So there's been some chatter that it may get pushed back again. So CDC, the Center for Disease Control, would always reauthorize this for 60 days. And so it was supposed to be lifted May 23rd. And I'm hearing and reading that it indeed may get pushed back for a little bit. So we'll have to see.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. According to a poll from Politico, 56% of registered voters said they don't like this lifting of Title 42. They want Title 42, in other words, to be in place, and that's what the political reaction, not only among Republicans, but as you mentioned, also among some Democrats who are currently in a tight race. You can imagine it's largely negative, right? But it's because of this. They realize that a lot of people perceive Title 42 as something that's necessary, and that if without it, the border is going to be overrun, or there's going to be chaos. But as I mentioned before, the reality is that Title 42, and this is my opinion, it just went beyond the pale here. It's just, we have to look at what Title 42 is, and Title 42 is essentially, it's a public health law. And it's designed to protect you and me, the public, from infections and diseases. It's meant to be a temporary measure, but it was not intended as a tool to control the border or manage the border as it was when it was first implemented under the Trump administration. But it's now outlived that purpose. And so, but look, I agree, there needs to be a plan. There should be, at the very least, a detailed process on how to handle the arrival of immigrants at the border. That needs to be in place. We're looking forward to those new asylum regulations that we think may control some of the flow of individuals who are coming in and requesting asylum. The administration, with its prosecutorial discretion policies, are now informing their officers that those who are coming in who are present a border security will be an enforcement priority. They will be processed for criminal prosecution if they're smugglers or doing something illegal. But I think in the end, it's always going to be the community and the organizations that are getting together to plan it out. But
and also when you think about the enactment of this humanitarian parole for Ukraine, I mean, those two had to do. I mean, there was a reason for it, and Title 42 is one of them, because there was a basically upheaval down at the border when people who were trying to come in and claim asylum were pushed back, while some said, like, while the white people from Europe, got an exception and they let them in. Right now, everybody's saying, well, there's war. You can't look at it that way. But I think there was quite a bit of pushback, and that was one of the reasons for the enactment of the parole starting next week.
Yeah, and talk about political circus. I'm curious. We didn't talk about this because we were out last week on Easter break, but Governor Abbott, when he reacted to Title 42 being lifted, he started saying that he was going to bus immigrants to Washington, D.C., and then he backpedaled. I'm curious to see what you thought about that.
He did. He actually, I mean, he already had, at least what I've seen, a few buses that were delivered or they were driven to Washington, D.C. So it's been happening, right? I mean, it's, political stunt, right? Certainly.
How did he get them on the bus? That's what I'm wondering, because you can't force them.
You can't force them. They had to volunteer. But think about it. I mean, you have a free ticket to D.C. where, like we mentioned before, you have the Salvadorian community. Salvador. So it's like, why not, right? I mean, there was some.
I would have taken that. I would have.
There was some. Listen, when I was an exchange student, I took a bus from New York to Austin.
Yeah.
That wasn't the best experience on one of the lines, and so I probably would have taken governor's bus. It would have been probably much nicer.
Like, where are we going? Okay, we're going to DC.
Well, we're going to Capitol.
Where do I put my bags? Let's go.
Yeah.
And
so
free?
They've had, I think, several buses that went up there.
Yeah, and I think it backfired. I think you realized that, and then also with the trucks, right? The secondary investigation for the trucks coming in from Mexico. I mean, it caused 3 to 4 hours of a backlog. Truckers and everyone. A lot of people were pretty angry and up in arms about that, and he rescinded that policy. But the theatrics. And
Wasn't Beto O'Rourke also against lifting of the Title 42? I think this week I read somewhere. So he's running against Abbott for governor, and I believe he was against lifting until there are some plans in place, which
yeah,
was pretty surprising.
yeah, those are you see some of the talking points forming, which brings me to the next subject. It's the politics. Why all these political antics? Why all this circus? It's because the Gallup poll, 4 in 10 Americans are worried about illegal immigration, and these politicians are looking at those numbers, and it's worrisome. It's worrisome.
Well, it's still less than 56% disapproving lifting of Title
Yeah,
42, right? So, but it's pretty close.
right. But that means that, are we going to get anything done in terms of immigration reform, things that matter, or is there just a focus, just a laser focus on border security? And that is something that that I'd like to pick your brain on that. Martin, what do you think about that?
It's going to be a focus on getting reelected, right? So each side is just going to kind of drum up and play up their points. It is going to be security. When you think back with all of the proposed bills that were in Congress and in the Senate, in the House and in the Senate, they all talked about strengthening of the border security. Remember, not moving forward until 90 some percent capture rate was attained, which was just incredibly difficult because I think it's 60 or 56 or 60 now. So requiring that, it's people are talking about it, so that's a good thing, right? They're talking about changes. We don't want just any changes, but most of these bills that were presented before, I mean, they were doable. I mean, they were something that would have really benefited the community. And I don't know. There's not much to pick from, and
Right.
the closer we get to November,
Yeah.
I think it's going to be less realistic that anything will go through.
Right.
And with May 23rd, with the Title 42 being lifted, if it will be lifted. Look, it's going to be lifted, I think, before November. And when it's going to be lifted, we're going to see a run on the border. It's just happened before, right? And they're predicting that it will be 18 to 20,000 people being detained every day. And so I think that's going to be in the headlines. It's going to be depending on which media you're looking at, but or which station, but it's going to be out there. So I don't know. I don't know we're going to expect to see anything before November. And after the elections, again, we'll just have to see what the realignment is in both chambers. But I don't know. I'm not seeing it.
You're right.
in November.
Well, immigration is still, that political buzzword that gets people all riled up and into voting booths. And these political antics, I'm afraid, are just going to continue on toward that. Next week, just as something to keep an eye out, we'll talk more about it, is this, speaking of the border, right? We have the Remain in Mexico, which is that policy of individuals who were coming in from a border, a country that's connected, Mexico, Canada, but more so Mexico, people coming in the United States and seeking asylum, were being expelled, or not necessarily expelled, but they were told to wait in Mexico until we call you for your hearing date and all that. And so what happened is that, the Biden administration last year, they pulled the plug on that. But again, politics, federal judge ordered the administration to restart the program. And now this whole issue about Remain in Mexico, that protocol will be heard next week before the 9 justices in the Supreme Court. So I'm anxiously waiting, and we'll get that information to you, give you all our impressions. Well, Martin, I'll do you the honor of announcing how many hits did it take for you to break that piñata? If you want to announce
Well,
the winner
well.
of our merch.
First of all, this was a day, a celebration day for our office, and then actually it was producer Joe. He's probably not going to show himself right now, but he was the one who came up with the piñata, and so I don't think I've ever gone against a piñata. It was a big, strong horse. It was in a parking lot in front of the building, so we didn't have a tree limb to hang it from. So it it was Andrew from our business immigration show, and on the other end of the rope, it was producer Joe who were holding the piñata. And so I took a few swings. We had some great guesses. It did not take one. Well, just okay. How many do you think? How many times did I have to hit it before I was able to, I guess, separate the
Well, you got
torso
to
from
look
the head?
at got to look at the quality of the piñata.
No, I thought it was made out of
It seemed,
concrete, man.
yeah. Well, see that's deceiving there, because from this point, I think it's something that you can probably hit with one swing and it'll break. But I was surprised when I heard the number.
Oh, well, it was before in front of my office here. So, but it was like a cast, when like a broken bone cast, but it was like 3 times as thick, and I thought I'm gonna have some kind of a metal bat or something, but this was just a piece of wood. And I'm thinking, how in the heck can I break this? And so, how many things? I mean, just do you know the number? I guess you do know.
I actually do know the number.
All right. So it was 7 times. It took
Yeah.
me 7 times to separate it. I didn't break it all, but I separated the top from the bottom. And we have Fabiola Peña, who was the person with the right guess. So we will get in touch with her, and congratulations to Fabiola, and we'll reach out to you and get your mailing address. I'm going to send you some merchandise, and
We'll definitely do that.
thank you for being our fan.
And we say that we will listen to your to your feedback, and if you write a question, we'll try to answer. And we do have a question here toward the end. We do, and this question comes from Mary, who has an I-130 petition approved in 2005, and she called USCIS, and it says they sent it to embassy, but when I call my receipt number, they said it doesn't have that information on that receipt.
Yeah. So Mary, it really depends on what type of category your I-130 petition is in. So seeing 2005, it might be it's going to be a preference category, but it just depends on who was it filed by. So who's the petitioner? Was it a mom? Was it a dad? Was it a parent? Was it a sibling? And then whether or not you are married, and then whether or not, so it depends on also which country you're from, whether or not you have the time, whether the timing is right. In other words, whether the priority date is current for you to move forward with the National Visa Center. And so National Visa Center does receive these approved petitions, but they will not act on it until or unless they are sometimes within a year or 10 months of the priority date being current. So there's 2-step. Petition is filed, and then you have to wait your turn, quote unquote, to be able to go to the second step. And so if we're talking about immediate relative, we're talking about a spousal petition, or somebody sponsoring a parent, or somebody sponsoring a child under the age of 21, it's just a processing time. There's no wait for priority date to become current, because that number is always current. But here it appears that it's a preference category. So reach out to us, just send us another message, and we'll be able to either consult with you, because we need more information. But it's likely that it might be coming up. But National Visa Center generally every year or so sends you or your attorney a communication letter, and so you always have to fill it out and say, I'm still interested. Because if you don't, and it lapses typically after a year, they'll discard it. And so you want to be very careful, and you want to always make the current information with the USCIS and also with the National Visa Center.
Right, and also the The USCIS case receipt number deals mostly with the cases that are filed with USCIS, but you have to remember the National Visa Center, Mary, will be issuing their own case receipt or reference number that's different from the receipt number. So when you're dealing with two agencies, you can expect to have two different reference numbers, and just check to see if anyone has received any correspondences either via email or through mail. All right, with that, we're here. We've concluded. Some words about our app where you can get news. We're talking about the news right now. If you want something important or something breaking, if you want to receive it the moment it comes out, get our app, Law Pilot Guardian. If you want information about your rights, Martin is showing.
This is the app, right? And so Nick just mentioned we were discussing the Uniting for Ukraine. And so when you click on the news tab, you click on the news tab, and here is the news. And here on top is Uniting for Ukraine. So when you click on it, you'll read more, and you have the link. You can read more about it from the source. So any relevant information we think would benefit our clients, our listeners, it is dispatched right away, and you'll get it through push notification on your phone. And plus, there's just lots of information on there. And so scan that code, or there are some links in the comments below, and register, and you'll be connected to us in case there is an emergency. If you have an emergency and you activate the button, we're able to find you on the map through GPS. Audio automatically uploads to the cloud so we can listen to you. And if you are detained, we know what you said, who you spoke with, where were you, where you were, because generally, if something happens, you don't get to talk to us or talk to your family until you've been processed and you're detained, your phone's been confiscated. So that's the reason why Nick and I came up with Law Pilot Guardian.
All right, well put. That information should be in our description. You can find us, and we'll see you all next week.